All right, y'all. I did it. I just got off the phone with Fidelity. I told them liquidate all the retirement accounts, put it all in on Bitcoin because I'm going for the glory. Obviously kidding, but this is the way it seems to me, and the parallels between this and what I call key platform risk, which is the e-commerce paid media subject that I'm talking about today. This isn't necessarily just applicable for e-commerce, but I'm talking about key platform risk. So what is key platform risk? This is when a brand builds up the majority of their business on one single channel and is reliant on that channel for the majority of its sales, the majority of its customers and conversions. That is obviously applicable to TikTok, could potentially get banned, but it's also applicable to other platforms. And those risks exist whether you are only running on Amazon or only running on Google Ads or only running on Facebook and Instagram, only running on TikTok, etc. Obviously, this TikTok ban keeps getting kicked down the road, but the overarching theme still remains that it is possible for a platform to get shut down. And if you are only exposed to that platform, you could lose all or the majority of your sales if that platform gets shut down. If your brand lives and dies by one single channel, you're putting everything that you've worked for, the brand that you've built, the business that you've built, you're putting all of that at risk because there are many things that can happen on a single platform. And I'm not just talking about TikTok here. Obviously, there's things like algorithm changes that are applicable to TikTok, but across the board for other platforms as well. There's things like platform bans and regulations, like I had mentioned with the TikTok ban, things that we can't control. We can't control what the government does. Thinking about things like ad account suspensions, which I've seen ad accounts get shut down arbitrarily. And even if Meta's auto checks made an accident and shut down your ad account, if your ad account is disabled for 5, 6, 7 days, depending on the size of your brand, that could be a monumental loss of sales for you. And if you're exposed to multiple different platforms, you also have the ability to shift that ad budget and your ad spend across platforms depending on the performance of each individual platform. So I want to talk about the real risk of platform dependency and share with you an actual example of a client that I've worked with for a while now, and they had built their business almost entirely through TikTok, both organically and via TikTok Shop, have built the majority of their brand awareness, sold the majority of the products that they have. The majority of their revenue comes from that channel and still does come from that channel, but it's not as much as it used to be. What separates this brand apart from other brands or people who are failing to adapt is before the TikTok ban was even announced, they had already started building out a strategy for Google Ads, started building out a strategy for Amazon ads, started building out a strategy for Meta ads, because building out these strategies are not exactly turnkey. Like if TikTok got banned, it's not like you could all of a sudden start advertising on Amazon the very next day if you've never had a listing before, you don't have FBA set up, all these other back end logistical things that need to get set up. Same thing with Google Ads. Maybe you don't have Merchant Center set up. Meta ads, maybe you don't have your Facebook and Instagram shops set up, or you need to get your advertiser account set up if it's not already set up. And the big thing that I think about is organic presence on those other platforms as well. Because organic presence, like having tons of reviews on your online website or having lots of followers on Facebook and Instagram, having lots of reviews on Amazon, those things do magic for paid advertising performance. And if those things are already in place, if you need to shift from TikTok to some of those other platforms, you're going to be able to scale and get the ball rolling so much quicker than if you had to build those up from scratch. So for this brand, if they had not built out a strategy, if TikTok was banned, they would have to scramble to try to figure out all these other platforms and think about all the lost profits, the lost money. They would lose a ton of revenue as a result.
Because I'm all out of money!
So I want to talk about organic versus paid, and I'm going to jump over to the whiteboard and talk about the paid side of things. But from an organic perspective, like I said, it's highly important to build up your organic account, start posting content, try to accumulate as many followers as you can, A plus content on Amazon, getting reviews, having more followers on Facebook and Instagram and building that up. Those are all very, very important things that need to happen. But from an advertising perspective, there are things that are out of your control, competition and things that I'm going to discuss on the whiteboard, changes in strategy that have a significant implication when it comes to advertising on a single platform and the things that can happen on the paid ads side of things that might make it more viable to switch over to another platform, which is why it's highly important to have built out a strategy on all platforms. Advertising costs are another huge implication and contributing factor into key platform risk. I made this chart just for you. I hope you like it. Let's get into it. Got some metrics here: CPM, CTR, CVR, which is conversion rate, AOV, average order value, revenue, ROAS, return on ad spend, which is your profitability metric. Starting with CPM. So I made a video about this last week explaining every single one of these metrics. So that is your cost per 1,000 impressions. Let's say you spent $10 to get 1,000 impressions. Your click-through rate was 2%. Your conversion rate was 5%. At a $50 AOV, that'd be $50 worth of revenue based on those other metrics, which would put your ROAS at a 5. So you spent $10 to get $50 of revenue. 50 divided by 10 is 5. So now let's say that Meta, for whatever reason, maybe it's more competition or arbitrarily they decided, okay, the CPM is going to go up because maybe it's a specific time of the year, or they think the quality of your creatives have gone down, or fatigue. There's many different things that can factor into CPM. But let's say your CPM doubles from 10 to 20, which is not completely out of the question. I've seen this happen before. And every single other metric stays the same. Click-through rate, conversion rate, AOV, revenue is the same. But since your CPM doubled, your ROAS was cut in half. So your ROAS goes from a 5 to a 2.5. So you're going from probably what is pretty profitable to maybe break even or just above break even, just because the CPM went from $10 to $20. And if you're exposed to one single platform and that happens, and you don't have a strategy dialed in on other platforms, you kind of just have to eat that or build out another strategy, introduce some new creatives, test different campaign types, things that you can do in the platform itself. But that's what the immediate result is if that happens. So let's say that your CPM is $20 again, but your click-through rate cuts in half, goes from 2% to 1%, also not completely out of the question. If there's ad fatigue over time, Meta starts showing your ad to someone who is less likely to click or less likely to purchase because they have exhausted all of your warm audiences, whatever it may be, all other metrics staying the same. Revenue would drop because the click-through rate is down, but your ROAS would go from a 2.5 to a 1.25, which is probably losing a good amount of money for most brands. Let's say we go back to that $10 CPM, click-through rate goes back to 2%, but now your conversion rate drops from 5% to 2%. Like I said, similar to the other line items, not completely out of the question. It's not something that could 100% for certain not happen. AOV, $50, same thing. Your revenue would be $20 in this instance because your conversion rate dropped. ROAS is now a 2. So you can see how changes in some of these metrics, your CPM, your CTR, your conversion rate, all these other ones are obviously important too. Changes in AOV are also something to consider. But how changes in ad costs, changes in creative performance, things that could happen. Maybe your conversion rate dropped because in the marketplace, $50 is too much for some people in the current economy or something like that. These things are real. These things can happen, which is why it's important to not have exposure to one single platform, because you put yourself at all of these risks, not even to consider all the other risks that I'm talking about in this video. Hope this helps you. So as it comes to organic versus paid, I think it's highly important to start with organic and then build up a paid presence from there. What I wouldn't do is just start scaling up your ad budget across platforms, because from a profitability perspective, unless you are a huge brand who has a lot of awareness, who is easy to scale for, like Nike or Adidas or some of these other ones that everybody already knows, if you try to move over to another platform and you're trying to scale budget on each platform requires budget of its own, enough budget to achieve statistical significance. And if you're trying to scale up every single platform at once, it's going to be a death sentence.
Okay, get in.
If you are a small brand. So get one going, then move to the next and keep the first one going, and then get the second one going, move to the next, keep the second one going, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of parallels to investing. And I think about the case for diversification. So just as a financial planner would tell you to be diversified across index funds and ETFs, bonds, stocks, precious metals, wine and whiskey, fine artwork, maybe. Where's my Basquiat fans out there? But it's similar, whereas you would want to have a diversified strategy when it comes to paid ads, because if a stock market tanks, or if precious metals tank, or if real estate tanks, you still have exposure to all those other different sectors of the market, whereas you'd have exposure to all those other sectors of your market, your advertising presence across all the channels that I had referred to several times in this video.
I got you now, SpongeBob!
So here's how to diversify your strategy without burning your budget. So, like I said, start with organic. Organic doesn't cost anything other than what you pay people to help you create content, post content, social media managers, videographers, that sort of time and resources side of things. But build those out first. And you can take the content across those platforms and repurpose it in many different ways. So, let's say you had a winning TikTok creative, even if it was an organic post or if it was an ad, repurpose that for Facebook and Instagram Reels or as a Facebook and Instagram post. It doesn't have to be the same thing, but take the essence of that winning piece of content and repurpose it for, like I said, Facebook and Instagram. Repurpose it for your website or a blog post. Repurpose it for YouTube shorts. Repurpose it for long form YouTube videos. Repurpose it for your email content, et cetera, and kind of take a winning strategy and go from there, scaling it across other platforms. And you don't have to do this in paid ads. It can be organic across those platforms. And then you can move into paid ads on those other platforms when it makes sense to do so. So when it comes to tracking and what to track, would highly recommend obviously using the ad platforms themselves to gauge performance. But if you're not running ads, it can be a little bit harder to do so. I would highly recommend utilizing a tool like Google Analytics 4. If you run a Shopify store, I would keep a close eye on the marketing report on there and seeing where revenue is coming from, or at least where Shopify is attributing that revenue came from in the marketing report is something that you can look at, which is a very, very useful tool. Seeing conversion rates across platforms, revenue across platforms, new customers, returning customers, all those sorts of valuable metrics that mean a lot to your business. So here's a pro tip. Let's take our minds out of the digital framework for a second and think about if everything was a physical storefront. So let's say you had a physical storefront for TikTok, for Amazon, for Facebook and Instagram, and for Google. If one of those closes, just as if you had a physical store in the real world, you still can pick up sales from all those other three. But if you have exposure to just that one storefront and it closes down, where are your sales coming from? So, in conclusion, I would start building out a strategy across all platforms, all the important ones at least, from both an organic and a paid perspective. So, what I would do is, depending on what platforms you are already active on, start building up an organic presence on TikTok. Make sure your TikTok shop is dialed in as well. Start putting together some sort of an affiliate strategy if that's something you haven't done already. I know I'm kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but these are all things that you could do on TikTok. For Amazon, get FBA set up, get your listing dialed in, A plus content, start getting some organic reviews, throw some other videos on there and pictures, like I said, A plus content. Build up your online storefront to help scale your Google and Meta ads, because when you're running Google and Meta ads, Meta does drive to the shop sometimes, but you can have it drive to your website landing page, which would be maybe your Shopify store. So make sure your Shopify store is dialed in with great content, reviews, is optimized for higher AOV and LTV, all these other things that I talk about that are very, very important. And then obviously would build up your Facebook and Instagram shops as well, your Facebook and Instagram pages too. Post consistent content on there, build up your followership because it acts as social proof. If someone sees your ad and clicks on it and sees, oh, wow, this Amazon listing has 300 reviews, or this Facebook and Instagram page, this Instagram page has 100,000 followers. Facebook page has 20,000 followers. That is validation to someone that says, okay, other people are using this. This is legit. If I like this product, if the offer is enticing enough, I'm going to buy it because other people have validated it for me. So you don't necessarily have to run paid ads across all channels, but I would recommend having at least somewhat of a presence across all channels, specifically for e-commerce. Because what you want is to have other platforms as a more of a turnkey option. If one platform gets shut down, okay, you already have these other ones dialed in and ready to go. So let's shift over that budget and start scaling because we've done the work to build up the organic presence on these other platforms. So whether you're an e-com brand or if you are some other type of business, it doesn't matter. I really do still think that this is applicable for you because you don't want to be exposed to a single platform for all of your revenue, all of your profitability, because if it gets shut down, e.g. TikTok, which could get shut down, there goes all your revenue and everything that you've worked to build and to achieve. Hope this helps you. Peace.